Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Woodstock, Georgia, it's time for Cherokee Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to another exciting and informative edition of Cherokee Business Radio. Stone Payton here with you this morning, broadcasting live from the innovation spot right here in the heart of Woodstock. And today's episode is brought to you in part by Alma Coffee, sustainably grown, veteran-owned, and direct trade, which means from seed to cup, there are no middlemen. Go check them out at myalmacoffee.com or slide on up to Holly Springs and go talk to Leticia or Harry. Tell them that Stone sent you. You're in for a real treat this morning. We have with us on the broadcast president with Engineering Search Partners, Mr. Pat Batchelor. Good morning, sir.
Hey, how are you, Stone?
I am doing well. So excited to have you on the show. We met here in the innovation spot. You were here. I think you were renting a conference room. Tom Devaney introduced us, right? And I conned you into coming on the show, and it's so glad that I did. Before we dive into any real detail, could you give our guest a bit of a primer, just kind of overview, mission, purpose? What are you out there trying to do for folks with this business? Well,
Stone, I am an engineer. I worked here in the Atlanta area for about 25 years as a consulting engineer, and enjoyed it, loved it. And then there was this thing called the recession 2007 to 2010, and work was just tough. It was brutal, And they say the difference between a recession and a depression is a recession's when your friends get laid off, and a depression's when you get laid off.
I love it.
And so I went through a real depression because half of the engineers and half of the contractors here in the Atlanta market got laid off. I mean, the work dropped off by 50%. So I was the business development manager for our company. I was the guy that was supposed to go get new work. And it was just brutal time for 3 years. And a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, Pat, are you going to our monthly engineering society meeting?" I said, "Sure." And she said, "Well, would you come for the engineering roundtable about an hour early?" And I thought, okay, finally, they're inviting me to come and help them with their issues. And I said, "But I've never heard of that group. What do they do?" And she said, "It's code for unemployed." And I went, "Oh, okay." So the first month I went, and there was about 7 or 8 unemployed engineers. And, and I kind of went, okay, well, I understand, And so the next month I went back, and there was like 12. And the next month there was like 20. And I was just like, the numbers kept going up. People coming to this group. And so they said, "Well, Pat, you know how to find jobs. Why don't you give a talk on teach us engineers how to find jobs?" And, engineers are they are a little bit problem solvers, but they're not so much people person. And so people hire people. And so what, I stood up the next meeting, and there was like 35 unemployed engineers. Now, this was kids right out of Georgia Tech, mid-level managers, and guys even past retirement, all looking for a job. And when you get 35 engineers in one room, when they're all unemployed, there's this low-level tension in the room. I've got to find a job. My heart really went out to these guys, and I just started thinking, is there a way I can help them? And I try to teach them and share them what I do. And because business development and looking for a job is the exact same thing. It's the same techniques. You have to find the room, work the room, talk to a decision maker, and pitch it to them why they should hire you. And so I told these guys this, and it just kind of went away a little bit. Like my heart was broken. And so I said, I really want to help these guys. And so a few years later, a friend of mine about that same time was a recruiter, and he was helping engineers find jobs and helping companies really find top talent. And so I decided, I'm going to become a recruiter. Now, the good news is recruiters work less and make more, which was great for me. And I like that formula. Yeah. So it worked really well. But one of the things I found over the years as working as an engineering recruiter is over the time when you put a job on Indeed or LinkedIn or anywhere and you post a job out there, you're really looking for just the right person at the right place in their career with the right level of experience. And so you may end up only getting, one year I went crazy and I said, you know what, if I can make a little bit of money on advertising on, let's say on Indeed for jobs, if I spend more, I'll make more. Right. And I was just like, okay, so I went nuts, and I spent a lot of money on Indeed and I ended up getting like 4,500 people applying for jobs over the 1 year, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Well, of that, about 50 of those resumes were even just good enough, were in the right spot, that fit the jobs that I happen to have. And I put them in for an interview, and, 10 or 12 got hired and I made a really good living. But what really irritated me is that 4,250 times I just went, no. Don't even send a response back to these people telling them how they can find a job, or, because they just apply and they think, oh, if I apply on Indeed or LinkedIn or Monster or Glassdoor or whatever, if I just hit apply, they're going to call me.
Not so much, huh?
No. And what I tell them is I say, hey, don't worry. Nobody will ever call you back. And they go, what? And you just go, no. Well, once you have that perspective, because, Indeed even right now, they run ads, oh, I didn't have a job, and I couldn't get hired. And then I hit apply. I went on Indeed and, and then within 3 days, 5 people called me and I'm just like, yeah, Well, and it may work.
There goes our Indeed sponsorship. Okay.
No, I love Indeed. One of my best friends works for them. It's a great company. They really do. Every day they place people.
Right. But you're talking about, there's just huge quantities of people and they don't really know what else to do. This is the one thing they know to do. It's the one thing I would know to do.
Yeah, you apply.
If I ever wanted a real job, I don't, but if I did.
You just hit apply.
Yeah.
And so it just frustrated me because 4,250 times I didn't even respond. I just said no and let it go. I don't even send them a thank you for applying roll, because that'd
be so time consuming. I mean, you can't, I know you probably, you're a nice guy. You would want to do that.
Yeah.
But that's not practical. That's costing you money now.
It's not about money. It's really is about trying to serve my customers. And so, but what was just so frustrating because I couldn't help these people find a job. So then fast forward. So it was always just a little uncomfortable because I would, put this big show on. Hey, if you apply here, you're going to get treated fairly and right and honestly. But I didn't even, 4,250 times just hit flush, no. And, okay. Some recruiters spend the time to send back a note. Most that I know are on to the next one because it's not a fit. I'm sorry. So fast forward, COVID shutdown happens earlier this last year. And all my clients go, whoa, stop. We're not going to hire right now. We're not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting at my office or at home because I got sent home. And along with the rest of America going, well, did I just cash the last paycheck for 2020? Mm-hmm. And I was like, what am I going to do? And so, all my clients were like, well, Pat, we're right now, it's so crazy. We're only going to hire A++ candidates, ones who bring work in the door. They pay for themselves. They know how to market works. They are truly experts and we're just going to bring them in. They're going to make us a bunch of money. We don't even have to train them. They're up and ready, teed up and ready to go. So I said, okay, I get it. So and those candidates come along very rarely. You don't usually get an A++ candidate because they're already working somewhere, making a ton of money. And if they want to go somewhere else, they just call down the street and they say, yeah, man, come on over. We'll interview you right away. So right. I'm not an A++. There's very few. Right. So I'm sitting at home going, well, what am I going to do? And so I decided to go on LinkedIn. And I just said, you know what? I've connected with a lot of people over the years. So I sent out a note to like 700 engineers. And I just said, who said on their LinkedIn profile, hey, I'm open to work, if there's an opportunity. So I sent a note out and I got like a 30% response rate. Now that's high.
Oh, I would think that's almost unheard of.
Usually when you send a note out, you usually get 18 to 20% of people will respond and they'll just say, yeah, tell me more or whatever. Well, 30%, over 30, which to me was like, I was just like, well, somebody's at least willing to talk to me because nobody else was wanting to talk to me at that time. And,
right.
and I was just like, I got to make a paycheck, I got to make a living here, Mom. I'm not going to go and tell my wife, hey, babe, I'm not making any money.
Party's over.
And plus at the time on the radio and TV, you were hearing about all these industries going out of business.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in restaurant business or hotels or cruise ship industry or the travel industry, airlines, they were all suffering. And so you kind of get the idea, oh my gosh, nobody's getting hired. What am I going to do? And so I said, when I got that response rate from those candidates, I sent the note out. They said, hey, I'm interested. And I was like, well, I don't have any specific job. Yeah, I can help you. And then I just went, you know what? I'm going to start teaching engineers and other folks. But I decided to create an online course to teach them because they're stuck at home anyway, right?
Sure.
They're stuck at home. They're unemployed. I mean, they're at square zero going, I've got to make a paycheck. I got to make the payroll in the next 2 weeks to put a roof over my head. I've got to find a job. And so I just said, you know what? Since the shutdown, I've been working not quite night and day, but I've been working pretty much at it now. I do have clients. Okay. Note to all the clients. I am still working on your job.
Still taking on that business.
I'm still taking on. My recruiting business has not stopped. I am doing it. And hey, babe, I'm still working on the recruiting business. Because my wife's going, look, hey, I know that business works. You better spend. Right. So I'm working on that side of the business. I am every day. But in my free time, I'm trying to develop a course that in a very systematic, simple, easy way to figure it out, you can start taking the right steps in order to land your next job or maybe your dream job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm an engineer. It takes one to know one. So I focused it on engineers, but it works for like 80, 90% of the people out there. If you're looking for a job in communications, it's the same technique. It's, hey, figure out what you want to do, connect with people who are doing that, get in front of them, start practicing and doing it. And next thing you know, you're going to be heading in the right direction.
So this is self-paced, self-directed, asynchronous kind of, I can
do it whenever you're ready. You can take the courses. Yeah. So,
and what's the medium? Is it videos or audios?
Yeah, it's going to be audio along with, and it's a workshop. And the reason I call it, it's called the DIY Engineering Job Search Workshop. And the reason I call it DIY means I can't find your job for you. I can't fill out your resume for you, and I'm not going to, interview for you.
Right.
However, I can teach you the right steps in the right order so that you can go about your job search in a logical, ordinary way, and it's going to work. So I thought it would work. I was like, I know this is going to work. And so I called up a friend of mine and I said, hey, Stephanie, I said, what's going on? And I said, I've got a big response rate from this email I put out to all these engineers. And she goes, you need to do a website. You need to do a webinar. And I'm like, what? She goes, oh, you need to do a webinar. You've always wanted to coach people. You're a natural at it. You're going to be great.
And it would get you out of your shell, Pat, don't you think?
I think it
would. You might have already been out of your shell.
Well, you know what? Yeah. So I'm an engineer with a personality. Okay. I agree with that. So then she just gave me the emotional backbone to try something new that I'd never done.
Good for her.
I've never done a webinar. Have you ever? I've never done one.
We all need a little Stephanie in our lives, right?
Yeah. She was a great cheerleader at Stephanie Hines. She is amazing. She's a great business coach. And I didn't figure I was good enough to figure it out myself. So I said, Stephanie, will you help me? And she's like, yeah, me and my team will set you up. So I do the webinar. Okay. This is the first time I've ever done it. So it's like, I know how to find a job and I know how I can share, but I don't know how to package it all, and it was just startup, and this was in May of last year. So I get a phone call. So I do the webinar, right? And it's an hour looking at a computer, with a little red light, and you're just talking and fumbling around. It was terrible. I'm sure it was terrible. But but I sent out, notes to all my friends. I had like 100 and some people sign up for the webinar. And I had 80 people that actually watched it. And then, I had 3 people buy. Woohoo!
Nice. No, but even if your ratios stayed there, at least you've got a formula.
Yeah.
But I bet the ratios got better.
Well, I'm still working on the ratios. It's kind of like my book. It's a lot easier to give it away than it is to sell it. But anyway, so one of the guys calls up and he goes, "Hey," he said, "my son saw your webinar." He said, he just graduated. This is May of 2020. Just graduated from University of Alabama with a degree in civil engineering. I'm a civil engineer. He's looking for a job, but he's stuck in Tuscaloosa. He wants to find a job here in Atlanta. He said, "Why should I pay you that kind of money to help him find a job?" And it wasn't crazy amount. He said, "Why should I pay you that kind of money?" And I was like, and so I told him, he was like, "Okay, you're on. I got you, So we did it live the first time through just to see kind of proof of concept. So the first time we're doing it all on Zoom calls. And I said, well, the first thing you need to do is update your LinkedIn profile. You need to make it look fabulous. For engineers and most of us normal humans, no matter how great of a website you have, no matter this or that, your LinkedIn profile for professionals, for let's say 80% of the people in the world, maybe 90%. Your LinkedIn profile, the reason why it's so important is it's your most valuable digital real estate that you'll ever have. That people are on LinkedIn and they're going, I need a lawyer. I need this or I need that. Well, they're going to go, even if they hit your website and they think it's good, they're going to go and look at your LinkedIn profile. If you're on Indeed or if you're on Monster, if you apply for a job online, and a recruiter or a hiring manager sees your resume, they're absolutely 100% of the time going to go, oh, let me go look at their LinkedIn profile to see if they're any good.
And don't put the pictures of that last cake party on your LinkedIn profile.
Right?
I don't know what the disciplines are. No, you're talking about early graduates, you're talking about seasoned people, but I'm getting a little long in the tooth. I've been in business for a long time. I don't.
Anybody and everybody. Yeah.
I don't have the first clue about the disciplines, the rules, some do's and don'ts about the stone profile. I mean, you're making me nervous. Mine's probably horrible.
Dude. Well, I just tell people, look, your LinkedIn profile, if you're in business, is either your best friend or your worst enemy. Because if you think it's just an online resume, it's kind of boring and, it's social media. Well, yeah, it is social media, but it's social media with a purpose. And I just encourage people, use your LinkedIn profile as a tool in your job search, as a tool in your personal branding, as a tool in the job that you might want in 5 or 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're using it. And when people hit it, they're either going to have a favorable impression of you or they're going to think, man, there's no way I'd call this guy. Some people are frowning. They're just like, you go, he looks like he's mad. You're like, why would I want to hire a guy who's going to yell at me if I call him up, All
right. So let's get tactical for a moment, if we might. Sure. Just on this one topic. It's very timely. I have a nephew. His name is Ryan, just graduated. I don't even know what kind of an engineer. Right. He's in this kind of situation where he had a lot more things lined up as a junior, going into this. And then all this is crazy. Now, for a guy like that, who's probably has really strong academic credentials, right. Very involved in whatever the club is and all that. I mean, what does a young person put on their profile that is compelling? Because what they don't have is the work history, right?
Correct. They have no work history. But do you have 18 years of telling the truth? Do you have 18 years of being self-motivated? Do you have 18 years of knowing how to carry on a conversation? Now, I know for a lot of kids these days, that's maybe a hard thing to do, is to carry on a conversation, right? So, but there's still skill sets there. If there's summer jobs, put it on there. You want to show a progression of moving forward in your career, even if you're stuck at home. Are you volunteering? Are you going out? And here's the thing. I just tell people, I say, now, my son, it's funny. Well, let me back up.
Sure.
Real quick. The kid that was in Alabama, he took the class. The first week he updated his LinkedIn profile. The second week he started looking online to figure out who he wanted to connect to. The third week, he says, hey, there's this company. I said, well, let's figure out who the decision makers are. He figures out the decision makers. I said, it's going to be that guy or that guy. Leave it up to a kid to find an engineering firm that I hadn't even heard of in Atlanta.
Right.
He applies. He hits send. 5 minutes later, the president of the company calls him back and goes, I've been doing this a long time. I've never had anybody reach out to me directly about a job that we'd advertised. Would you come in for an interview?
It really set this guy apart because all the other kids,
they're so afraid to make a phone call. They just hit apply and say, well, if they like me, they'll call me. And I just go, no, they won't. They won't. They're not going to call you. So automatically, just by the one simple step of figuring out who it is and send a LinkedIn connection. And then when they do, he just sent one follow-up note. It just said, hey, I'm an entry-level engineer looking for a job. Saw you had advertised one. I'd love to talk to you about this opportunity. Let me know. I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee. You don't.
And that guy's going to try to help it. Even if he would not have been a good match, that guy is going to try, or that lady, but that person is going to try to help that kid. Everybody reached out to me.
Everybody wants to do somebody a favor if it's not too hard.
Right.
And they have the connections. You don't. You're an entry-level engineer.
Right.
And so I just said, long story short, he went down. He got hired. His dad thinks I'm a hero after 3.5 weeks. And he goes, now here's the beautiful thing. As an engineer, not everybody makes a ton of money, but entry-level engineers are going to make, let's say, $52,000. That's kind of a good.
That's 62 more than I made early on.
No kidding. Me too.
My worst year was like minus 13.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You pay for the education. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, so you figure that out and you say, well, that's $1,000 a week. Right?
Right.
I mean, upper math, if you make 52,000 a year, that means you make 1,000 a week.
Even our communications major is staying with you on this.
Wouldn't you be willing to spend half a week to learn how to find the job? And I just tell people, I say, look, invest in yourself, take the course, and it's going to help you move your career ahead.
All right. Is there a pat dimension to this? So I take my self-directed thing. I'm going through the course and all that for a little extra money or built in. Maybe can I talk to Pat maybe once or twice during the curriculum?
Yeah, we're going to we have weekly sessions where it's not one-on-one, but probably 10 or 15 guys on the phone call. Which makes it even more fun.
That's even better because I want to know what her challenge is.
What's her challenge?
I want to hear her success story.
You may know somebody can help her find a job. I mean, it's all about networking, right?
Yeah,
it's all about helping.
I'd rather do the group probably.
Somebody else. So yes, we're providing that service as well. And so that way they get, I'm nervous, and I was like, I love helping people. You think?
All right. So the LinkedIn, critically important. And you have a lot of guidelines and disciplines. And
things
that kind
you
of
do
thing.
and don't do. Absolutely.
All right. So, and beyond that though, what I'm definitely sensing is this, you got to kind of get outside your comfort zone, your box, and get creative and think of terms of trying to craft some sort of relationship with people in this ecosystem.
Yeah,
and if that person can't help you directly, maybe they know someone who will. And a 57-year-old middle-aged guy like me, I've kind of learned over the years, that's a good way to conduct yourself.
It's a great way.
But maybe if you haven't been involved, and I've always been involved in sales. But I think maybe in some of these other professions, that doesn't come as naturally.
No, I mean,
okay.
I mean, there's kids when they graduate, they think I can't call somebody up. I'll bother them. And I'm like, look, step back. I'm officially giving you permission to call them because here's the thing. Nobody ever does it. So over the years, I've had tens of thousands of people apply for jobs that I've posted online. I've had 8 people that have ever called me, and it's so easy. It's not like I'm hiding, have called me and just said, hey, Pat, I applied for a job this morning. Do you know if I'm a fit for this role or not? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, I hadn't even seen your resume. Let me go over and look at it. And I'm like, hey, bud, I'm sorry. It's just not quite a fit. Or yeah, it might be. But one thing he did was at least get noticed in this day and age. Even if you're highly qualified for the perfect job, just getting noticed by the company is the hard part. So this course helps people bridge the gap from being stuck at home, applying online, to actually getting conversations and interviews with the people at the company. That's all it is.
Now, once I'm in on this thing, can I go back to it? Like, does it expire in 90 days?
No,
or
man,
Once I'm in.
You are in, you're in. You're a part of the team. You pay, you're in. You have access to the course. And, hopefully I'll be able to improve it over the years.
Well, sure you will.
People. So, right now it's still, kind of in that beta stage. It's still kind of working the kinks out. But soon it's going to be professional enough where I feel like, okay, I'm ready to go, And so that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm planning for. And again, all my engineering clients, yes, I am working on your job. I'm trying to find people for your COO role, and I'm trying to find people for your entry-level sales role. As a
now, what is that life like? Like, what is a day in the life when you're wearing that hat? Like, what will you do today in that regard? Yeah.
Yes. So I have about 10 companies that have reached out to me and said, Pat, if you can find me somebody here, we're going to give you a really nice paycheck at the end. And I'm like, it's kind of like sales, a broker who's
so you don't get a check up front. It's okay.
Well,
in most cases,
some recruiters will take retainers, and I've started doing that myself. But generally for me, it's, hey, you get what you pay for. If I bring you a great candidate, you're going to hire them. You pay me a really nice check, so it's almost no risk for them. But I've found that there's other models that work as a recruiter. But so you wake up in the morning, you go to the office, you open up your file and you say, okay, what's the biggest search I've got right now? And right now I've got a company that says, we got to have a COO, C-suite level engineering firm here in the Atlanta area. Great company. And so I develop a target list of about 50 to 100 people that are qualified, highly qualified for that role. And it's really hard because
like you said, the ones who are really highly qualified,
they've already got a job.
Man, they're already pitching for the Yankees.
They've already got, they're wearing the pinstripes, right?
Right.
And they're hoping that, and oftentimes they'll have equity in the company or they'll be part owners of the firm. Well, you're not going to attract those people to say, hey, come work for this other firm and we'll start you out at,
So you got to catch that person on the fall down or the rise up
usually on the rise up.
On the rise up. Now, who does the interviewing? Do you do some pre-interviewing? Do you take on all the interviewing, or does it just depend case by case?
No. So typically I'll do the preliminary screen and determine
if this guy's a wingnut.
And then,
he might be great, but he's a wingnut.
He's not qualified for this role. Well, and then you find someone, you go, oh, that's that guy. Let's see if there's some traction.
And in those companies, he'll have people who know how to professionally. The reason I'm asking, in my situation, if I were to hire someone, most of our people are contract and, we're kind of a subscription service. We're kind of a lean run organization. But as we continue to grow and expand, we may be in a position to actually hire people. I think I enjoy, and I think this I can do, this real conversation about somebody's business, but interviewing someone for a job, I think it would be so easy for me to fall into the trap of just believing it. The first person I meet, I'd want to hire him.
Yeah.
Because we get to know each other. We laugh.
And we're like, well, if he can yuck it up at the bar, he's going to be a great recruiter. Yeah. Come on and join us. So
that's a whole skill set.
It's totally a whole skill set. Yeah. And most people do it wrong. I mean, honestly, we all do it. It was like, oh, I like him. He's fun. He's friendly, and you go, they're often measuring the wrong things. So oftentimes companies are looking for someone to be ready day one of the very first day. They're like, man, we want this person to be ready to go and hit the ground running. And in reality, what they should be thinking of is at day one, year one, after they've been there a full year, is that the right person who's going to go forward in the future? And that's a completely different deal. And so they're measuring the wrong things, but that's beside the point. That's another whole book and issue and topic.
Oh, you've got 2 or 3 books in you. There's a book you already have out that we're going to talk about in a few moments before we wrap. But I am curious, for a practice like yours, a business like yours, how does the whole sales and marketing thing work? Like, how do you get that new piece of business or that opportunity to fill a spot? You can't just pick up the phone and call.
No, nobody ever calls you as a recruiter. Nobody ever calls you.
Yeah. How do you get the new business?
The same way people find jobs is the same way.
It's the same stuff you're teaching.
It's exactly the same. That's why it's so easy. It's like, okay, you go, I'm an engineer. It takes one to know one. And I look at a firm and I say, well, they're not too small. They're not too big. They're just right. And they're in engineering. And I know something about engineering. So I'll just send them a note, connect with them on LinkedIn. I send them another note. Hey, I'm a recruiter. I specialize in this marketplace. Would love to buy you a cup of coffee and see if you might have any needs in 2021 that you might need some recruiting help on. And they go, okay, well, he's a recruiter. He's friendly. And he knows what we do because he's an engineer. Okay, yeah, let's give him a shot.
And an engineer you mentioned earlier, and I think it's quite true, with a personality. And you're not just looking for an immediate transaction. You talked about having a cup of coffee. The foundation. All this is relationship.
Yeah. I tell people this. I say, look, I'm planning on being a recruiter for the next 20 years. I want to be your recruiter for the next 20 years. And if it's just about making one placement, well, I'd love to make one placement. That's how I make a living. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to make one placement a year for the next 15 years or 5 a year for the next 15 years.
And that requires relationship, I would think.
It does. So here's a fun story. You start dating yourselves. But when I first got out of college, I went to work for an engineering firm. My boss was a great guy. Now, this is back in the dark ages. There was no internet. There was no cell phone. There was no, we had the yellow pages. You open it up and go, oh, there's the engineering firms in town. Let's go by and visit them. And so I landed a job with a company, and my boss was a great guy. And I worked with him for about 3 or 4 years. And then I had an opportunity. I moved on. They had an opportunity. He moved on, and you don't see anybody or talk to him again for 15 years because we didn't have any way of keeping up. There was no Facebook. There was no way of keeping up with people, right? Mm-hmm. You remember those days.
Oh, yeah. I can remember when email came out, and then I found out you could do an attachment. I thought, man, the world is, can you believe this, Holly? I told her my wife, we met each other at work. Yeah. I'm like, Holly, you got to see this. That document, you can tack it, you can staple it to the thing and send it to the place with the guy.
You were stuck back in the fax days, the fax machine was a big deal at one point,
Right.
So long story short, I kept up with him. And then we would see each other at conferences because we're both engineers, and we'd see each other. Hey, Bob, how's it going? Hey, Pat, but we just keep up with each other and our family. Well, when I became a recruiter, I reached back out to him and said, hey, Bob, guess what? I'm a recruiter. He goes, really? I said, yeah, I'm going to focus with engineers. He goes, you're going to be good at that. I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, matter of fact, I need somebody. And I said, well, what do you need? And he goes, well, I need a structural engineer that knows how to da-da-da-da-da-da. That relationship was one that I had fostered 25 years ago.
Wow.
And I had trust with him. He knew that I was honest. I was hardworking. I wasn't going to misrepresent myself. I found him a job. I found the perfect person, this wonderful young lady named Amanda. She happened to be in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. And this was her dream job, and I called her up. I said, Amanda, I heard from a friend of a friend that you might be interested in doing forensic engineering. I've got an opportunity. She's like, what? I'd love to do it. That's my dream job, and she got to move into her dream job. And it was just so exciting because the company was excited. My candidate was excited. They fell in love with one another,
This has got to be.
It was so fun. But she was in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. But you just network. You call somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Do you know someone? And somebody gave me her name, and so that's how I made my first placement. But long story short, it was somebody that I met 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, when they say, when's the best time to plant an apple tree? Do you know when the best time to plant?
25 years ago, maybe?
That's exactly right. Yeah, you've heard this story, right? It's 10, 15 years ago. So that way this spring, you're going to have apples.
Right.
So when's the second best time to plant an apple tree? Today.
That's good wisdom. Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So when I tell people, you're going to look at LinkedIn 2 different ways, as a hunter and as a farmer. And you've heard this. You're in sales. You know what this means. Hunter means you're going to go out and you're going to kill it today or this week or this next week so we can feed. But you're also going to be planting seeds. And every party you connect with on LinkedIn is going to be a seed, and you're going to grow a field, and you're going to cultivate it, and you're going to talk to people, and you're going to say, hey, this is what's going on. And as you develop that relationship, one of those people that you got to meet on LinkedIn in 2021 might be the boss that's going to hire you in 2031, which seems forever away. But as you know, it happens. And a career lasts 45 years.
Sure. So it's got to be an incredibly rewarding career. I mean, you must really love what you do.
I love what I do, but I still enjoy engineering. I mean, there's days I just go, I want to go out and build, pour some concrete and build something, So I love doing that. I love hanging out with engineers. I love building, looking at buildings and doing,
right.
There's a shear wall or there's a wastewater treatment plant or here's a highway, and I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
But I love.
But that still gets your juices flowing. Okay, I want to switch gears with you for a minute before we wrap.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll swing back around and make sure that we have the appropriate points of contact for people to reach out and talk about your course, for organizations to reach out and talk about your recruiting services. But I want to talk about Cowboy Bob.
What?
For a minute. Tell our listeners. You've got to. I want folks to have a little bit of a window into the real Pat.
Oh, the real Pat. Oh, my God.
Tell us about Cowboy Bob.
Cowboy Bob. So when my kids were small, they were like 5 and 6 years old, and you were trying to slow them down to go to bed, I made up Cowboy Bob stories. And it was just, my friend Cowboy Bob, called me up and he said, "Hey, Pat, let's go up into the mountains and go hiking and see the total eclipse of the sun." Because you remember back in 2017, there was a total eclipse that came through the United States. Well, a buddy of mine, a good friend, David Lyons, he said, "Hey, let's go hiking." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he told me the dates and he told me where he was wanting to go up in Wyoming. And I was like, "Dude, there's going to be a total eclipse and it's going right through there." He's like, "All the better. Come on, So we went up there. We had a great hiking trip. We hiked, 11 miles in with backpacks. We spent, it's a typical guy trip, you just hanging out in nature and all of this. Anyway, we got to see the total eclipse and we came back home and it was just a fabulous trip. So then about 3 years ago, my granddaughter was born. First time, it could be a.
And what's her name?
Her name's Araya.
Araya.
So we call her Araya Sunshine.
Nice.
And she's just the cutest. She, little finger, she's got me wrapped around a little finger. She's amazing. But when I was in the hospital, I was just holding her and I started telling her a Cowboy Bob story. And his wife kind of looked at me and went, "What?" And he goes, "Oh, it's Cowboy Bob's story." Well, I figured, Araya may, who knows with grandkids if you're going to get to be around them at bedtime. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write her a story. So I started thinking, I'll write her a Cowboy Bob story. So I started writing it up and I didn't know anything. How do you know how to publish a kid's book? I mean, I had no idea. So I just wrote the story and then I do what I do. I went on LinkedIn. I typed in graphic designer. It pops up a friend of mine that I went to high school with. And I reached out to her. I said, "Janie, what's going on?" I said, "Hey, I'm thinking of writing a children's book." She goes, "I do them all the time." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, my friend." She sent me a note. It was perfect.
She can hook you up with everything you need, right? The editor or whatever.
She did it all. So she's amazing. Janie Owen. She lives in Texas.
All right. Shout out to Janie.
Janie, thanks so much. So I published, she helped me publish a book. So it's self-published book. Mm-hmm. You can go on Amazon and buy it. It's called Cowboy Bob and the Total Eclipse of the Sun.
Okay.
And, it cost $15. It was so funny because I was at a bookstore and I'm walking through the bookstore in the children's section. And, there's one by Stephen King, it's $10. And I call Janie up and I said, "Well, Stephen King's selling his for $10. She goes, "You're not Stephen King." And apparently on Amazon, if you sell it for less than $15, you don't make any money. You have to pay Amazon.
Oh my.
So, yes, you publish the book, you get it. It's $15 price point, but Amazon keeps $13 of it. And I get $1.50, but hey, whatever.
So it's not your retirement plan.
No, but it's funny because I say I'm really good at giving them away. I'm not so good at selling them, and you just realize, but it was so fun and it was a fun process. And so it's begging for a sequel. I just haven't quite. Oh yeah.
There should be no end. And as Araya gets older, maybe some of the topics will change,
You never know. Maybe she'll help me write the next one, So I don't like that picture, whatever. So
that's funny.
So it's a fun little book. And if you want to go online, you can get it.
Well, we'll include a link when we publish this.
Sure, why not?
So if you'd like.
Yeah.
And so that's fun stuff, but I love seeing it this morning. Okay. Let's make sure that our listeners do have some points of contact, a website, phone number,
sure,
whatever is appropriate. So lay it on us.
Right. So if you go online to www.diyejs.com, you can get a look at my website. Now, it's still up. It's a little clunky, so give me a little bit of time on that, but it's getting really close. And you can buy the course and you can join us. And I'm excited about it because I really think my heart is to help people find jobs. I mean, I'm not doing this to retire or whatever, but I want people to do it. Now, there is a price point. And the reason why is because if I put it all out for free, nobody ever does the work. And
Isn't that
work.
The truth?
It is work.
Yeah.
Finding a job, finding your dream job takes energy, focused energy and effort day after day. You just do the work and you're going to reach the goal. But if you just sit there and think, okay, I'm just going to apply online, hit a button, and somebody's going to magically call you and offer you a $50,000 job, no, it's not going to happen. They don't call me back. They're not going to call you back. Now, again, sometimes people do get hired, so I don't want to make it a blank. But the chances,
not much of a strategy.
It's not much of a strategy. It's a spray and pray, right?
Right.
People say, I say, did you ever get hired? And I say, what are you doing to, for your job search? Well, I'm applying online. How have you done? And they say, well, I've applied about 300 times. I say,
oh my,
really? I mean, how many phone calls you got back? Not many, none. And I'm like, yeah, let me know about that, and that's the spray and pray method, just if I hit enough people, if I push one button, apply, and you're like, really? You want somebody to hire you because you know how to push a button? It's like, really? There's a few other steps that can make you so much more attractive. And in engineers and most people, we think if you build it, they will come. And we know that's not true. You got to build it. You got to advertise it and really make it appetizing. Then they'll come. So it may
and you're
work.
Sharing step by step some specific strategies, tactics for doing all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely going to help them take the right steps to reach their first engineering job, their next engineering job, or their dream job. So,
fantastic. All right, one more time, that website.
So it's www.diyejs.com and the engineering job search, So again, it is tailored for engineers, but it works for about 90% of the people in the world. If you want to be a model in Paris, okay, it's not for you. If you want to be a professional,
you don't know much about that, Pat?
If you want to be a professional athlete of any sort, it's not for you. But for most of us mere mortals, they're just trying to find the next step in our career. It's a great site to go check out.
Well, Pat, it has been tremendous having you in the studio today. Thanks so much
for
we're here to sharing your story. We are, and I think we have.
Yeah, and here's the thing, with the course, I wanted to make it fun, empowering, and informational. And so I try to do that in every video to make it fun because you know what? It's tough being at home, stuck at home, trying to find your next job. There's so much emotional angst around that I really want to try and make the course fun. And so hopefully we'll do that.
Well, I'm absolutely certain that you will. And, let's look to have you come back sometime. And maybe it would be fun to have one of your clients from the recruiting side and or one of your pupils from this curriculum. So that, this doesn't have to be the last time that we have a conversation, but this has been great fun, man.
I hope it's been fun. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today, President, Engineering Search Partners, Pat Batchelor, and everyone here at the Business RadioX family saying we'll see you next time on Cherokee Business Radio.